via the city and TRPA. My name is Tracy Franklin. I'm the Public Information Officer for the City of South Lake Tahoe. Our experts today, we have Tiffany Good with the TRPA. We have Judy Finn, one of our associate planners at the city, and I hate to announce this, but she's retiring soon. So this is really great that we're going to get this info from her. And then, of course, our building official extraordinaire, Dave Walker. For me personally, I want to learn what the process is to get my driveway redone, since it's vintage 1970s. Is anybody else here with specific interest or getting specific answers for maybe their home or for their neighbor or for their job? Yeah. What are you looking to do?
I want to find out, yeah, same thing, the driveway, but is that considered coverage? Is it the same coverage if I build a structure on that driveway?
Great
coverage
question.
Stays the same, or?
Hopefully our panel of experts will tell us today. So, anybody else?
No, that was my question also, about the driveway and building a carport or a garage.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's kind of like a mystery. So, when Tiffany sent me her presentation, TRPA has YouTube videos, so we're working on it. So, we'll hear a little bit more about that. And then also there is a tremendous amount of information on the city's website and downloadable forms, so I'm sure our experts will tell us more about that. So, without further ado, Miss Judy Finn's going to kick us off.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Zoning in the city is not typical zoning that you would find in other areas. Our city is divided into 37 areas. Each area has either a plan area statement or an area plan associated with it. And these area plans and plan area statements contain a list of permissible uses. That's what we use for zoning in the city. So if you're a homeowner here in the city, you probably live within a plan area statement that allows residential uses. If you are a business owner, your business is probably in an area that's zoned commercial. And not every commercial use is allowed in every commercial area. So it's a little bit more complicated here than it is in areas that just has a map with a C for commercial and everything goes. Just about everything you do in the city requires a permit of some sort. So the first thing we do when you come in the door to get a permit is to look at the zoning to see if your use is a permissible use, and then we go from there. So the city and the TRPA have joined a partnership. We have a memorandum of understanding that allows the city to issue many of these permits that will look at both the city code and the TRPA code to help property owners and business owners so that you have basically one-stop shopping. So if most of you are here for residential uses, first thing I want to know is, I have this vacant piece of land. Can I build a single-family residence on it? Can I build multiple family? And if I want to build multiple family, how many units can I have? So the first thing we're going to do is look at the zoning to see if that's allowed. Because not every residential area allows multiple family. So if you're in an area, then we also look at the density, which means how many units per acre are permissible on your piece of land. And the most lenient plan area in the city allows a minimum of a parcel to be 6,000 square feet to build 2 units. And then it increases from there. First thing you need to do is to have some sort of allocation of use to do either commercial or residential or recreation. A residential allocation of use is called an allocation. That's what everybody refers to. Every year the TRPA gives the city a certain number of these allocations to use to issue to property owners to build their residential units. A few years ago, the list was about 10 years long. There were so many people on the list. When the economy got bad, we couldn't give them away. Now the economy has recovered and we're back to a fairly manageable list. So if you get on the list, you can get your allocation within a year or two. If you already have a residence and you want to build a driveway, you want to build an addition, we look at coverage because there's a limited amount of coverage that's allowed on each parcel. The general rule is the general amount of coverage allowed is between 25 and 30% for most parcels. If it's sensitive land, then not as much coverage can be put on your property. So we had the question about coverage. If you have something already covered. So if you already have a footprint of your house and you want to build an upstairs on it, that's not creating new coverage. But if you want to go out this way and go over land that's bare dirt, that's additional coverage. One of the things that the city cannot do is a land capability verification that tells you how much coverage you can actually have. So you do need to go to TRPA and have that done.
And that's called what? What's that called again?
The Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, the TRPA.
No, what's the permit or the allocation?
To have additional coverage. But if you want to go up over the existing coverage and your coverage has been verified, then you can do that. It doesn't create additional coverage.
What about, oh sorry, what about over a existing blacktop driveway?
Well, you are required to have 2 parking spaces for each residential unit. So if you have a driveway, and that's where you park your cars, if you don't have a garage, you have your driveway, that's where you park your cars, then you can't use your driveway for coverage because there won't be any place to park your cars. But if you have a driveway, your driveway has to be at least 20 feet long because that's the setback for your house.
From the street?
From your front property line.
Oh.
So there's usually a right-of-way between the edge of pavement of the street and your property line. And the city we can help you with that. We can let you know how big that right-of-way is for the different streets.
But what if the structure's a garage, that's the 2 parking spaces that are required, that would meet the qualifications of those 2 if you're building a garage on that driveway, so you still have your 2 parking spaces?
As long as the garage is out of the setbacks. We have setback requirements too. So any structure has to be at least 20 feet back from the front property line and at least 5 feet from each side property line for a parcel that's 10,000 square feet or less. If the parcel is over 10,000 square feet, your side setbacks are 10 feet and the rear is 15. So you can build a garage over existing pavement as long as it's out of the setbacks. If you want to build a fence requires a permit. We make sure that the fence is out of the setback. Your fence can be 3 feet tall on your property lines. To go 6 feet tall, it has to be at least 20 feet back. And there's a good reason for that in the front, because when the snow plows come down your street and they push the snow, they push it up against a 6-foot fence that's on the front property line. That snow against that fence is going to damage the fence. But a 3-foot fence, when they blow the snow, it will go over the fence. And believe it or not, the front 15 feet of your property, the city has an easement for snow storage. So that's why we have the fence requirements. You do need a fence permit. If you're going to remodel your house, you need a building permit. Dave can talk to you about that. But basically what I want to share with you today is that we are user-friendly. We've tried to streamline all of our applications. We have handouts for how to do a lot of the frequently asked things that people want to do: fences, decks, driveways, small additions on your house. Come in and visit us at the front counter. We're happy to help you, and hopefully we can help you without having to have you go back and forth to TRPA. There's many things that we can do to help you. Thank you.
So I think you're going to navigate over to mine. Do you want me to just tell you when to switch slides?
Sure.
Okay, so my name is Tiffany Good, and I work for the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. I'm a senior planner over in the current planning division. These days I'm doing a lot of shore zone. So some of this stuff is some of the single-family dwelling stuff I might struggle through, but I think I have a few good drafts and I can help answer questions if it comes to that. But what I want to do really briefly is just kind of set the context for you. You can go ahead and next slide. And the City of South Lake Tahoe is just one of our many partners. So we have a pretty wide range of things that we deal with and a lot of MOU partners. So I'm really here to talk to you about what we do with the city. But just as a context setting, TRPA's jurisdiction is both states, California and Nevada, and so we're dealing with 183 legislators with the policies that we are dealing with. 5 counties, the City of South Lake Tahoe, of course, so 30 locally elected officials and the federal government. So those are a lot of people to please, a lot of different interests to negotiate, which is kind of what makes working for the TRPA fun. So moving to the next slide. When the compact was created, it was created with the approval of Congress and the President in 1969, and then amended in 1980 with standards that kind of make up our regional plan. And these are a lot of, you probably hear, maybe you haven't heard of, thresholds. In TRPA, we do a lot of work with thresholds, making sure that air quality stays the same or gets better, water quality stays the same or we'd like it to get better. And there are, Julie, how many thresholds we have right now? 150 standards. 150 standards. There's a lot of thresholds that we are responsible for. We have a 15-member board, 7 from California, 7 from Nevada, and 1 presidential appointee. And our code of ordinances lays out the rules and laws to achieve our regional plans and goals. And I think that document is about 672 pages, give or take. So that's what TRPA staff deals with on a daily basis. So the regional plan, which of course most of you may know, was adopted 12/12/12. Took a very long time to get us to that regional plan update, and it's something that I think we're all very proud of. And it gives us our overarching regulatory framework. The overarching goals are to establish a balance between natural and human-made environments. And then, of course, our jurisdictional MOUs are a big part of that, the City of South Lake Tahoe being a great partner with us for that. And then some of the emphasis that we are really focusing on right now is moving development out of sensitive areas and creating town centers, which I think this really came forth with the recent adoption of the Tahoe Valley Area Plan. It was a great success for the City of South Lake Tahoe and for us. All right. Okay, so what does TRPA permit in the City of South Lake Tahoe? Like Judy said, she gave you kind of a framework for what kind of process, what kind of process you might embark to get driveways, paving permits permitted for your driveways. There are some actions that are going to be part of your process as a homeowner that currently the city does not look at. And you're going to have to maybe come see us, or we can work with the city to give the city the information they need to give to you. Okay, so some of those things that are especially pertinent to homeowners like yourselves, property owners like yourselves, verification of existing uses and structures. So these are things like verification of coverage, for example, or verification of existing residential unit of use. Okay, maybe your home was built a long time ago. Maybe it's a cabin that doesn't really have any records to it besides maybe your assessor's records. And you want to remodel that, or maybe you want to tear it down and think about doing something later. Well, you need to get that unit of use verified. And that's something that we do at TRPA. It's a pretty straightforward application. Land capability verifications. This is something that you probably have to do more on like commercial properties. Also, if your home is in the Keys and you need to do a backshore boundary delineation, you would do a land capability verification with TRPA. Site assessments, those include land capability and coverage verification. And land capability is important, as you know. This is what kind of establishes the baseline for how much coverage, how much asphalt, how much residence, how much deck you can put on your property. So, that's an important one, and that's one that we do. Lot line adjustments is another one that we permit, and the city permits them as well. So it's 2 stops for lot line adjustments, and that's because TRPA is reviewing those lot line adjustments for something different than the city is reviewing them for. So that's a 2-stop process. Grading outside of a project. Oftentimes when you're maybe adding an addition to your home, and or maybe you're building a new residence and you have to do some digging that's in excess of 7 cubic yards. If you're doing that as part of a project, then the city can look at that for you and they can permit that as part of that project. But if it's outside of a project, like for utility lines or something to that extent, then come talk to us at TRPA and we can help you with that. All transfers of commodities. Who knows what commodities are? Anybody? Okay, well, this is not Commodities 101, but I'll just give you briefly. Commodities are basically units of use. It's a growth limiting policy that we have. So things like commercial floor area coverage is a commodity. Tourist accommodation units, aka hotel rooms. Let's see, what else am I missing? Existing residential units. Those are all considered commodities. So if you want to transfer that from your property to someone else's property, then you need to come see us at TRPA. And then the banking of any of those commodities, coverage, uses, etc. And then public service, you'll also come to us, which I think is a little less applicable for this group. So it's really these top ones that you'll want to come see us for. So in the grand scheme of things, it seems like a lot, but out of everything that TRPA permits and the city permits, it's really not that bad. And we're working to make it better. Good question?
Yeah, in terms of land capability, are you still using the Bailey system? You mentioned commercial versus residential, so is that still bridge, and are you still using it?
That's a really good question. And the land capability, so if you have a vacant lot that's never been developed, you'll likely, more than likely, 99% of the time, you'll have an IPE score, an individual parcel evaluation score. And that will give you your development potential for that property. The land capability verification is for commercial properties, and that will give you, that's under the Bailey system like you mentioned. And then also if you do have to do a backshore boundary delineation, and that's really just in the Keys, I think, for the most part in the city. So, good question. Did I answer it for you?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So,
what is the banking process?
The banking
or
process.
Allocation state?
Do you have like a commodity in particular?
Yes.
So let's say it's coverage that you would like to bank, and let's say you have never done anything else on your property. We need to make sure that the coverage that you want to bank is legally existing. So we need to go through that process to make sure that that's legally existing. So you would provide us with assessor's records, any aerial photographs that might indicate that it was existing prior to 1987, or if it's coverage that was put on your property after 1987, likely, hopefully, it was done with the permit, and then we can verify that pretty easily. So the step is, first we need to make sure it's legally existing, and then we can go ahead and bank that for you. It's an application at TRPA, and we'll basically take a look at your application, your records, and then issue you a banking letter that you can then use if you wanted to transfer that off. Okay? Yeah?
I had to read by the decking while you kind of off coverage. Is that true?
Well, as part of the regional update, we did, there are some coverage exemptions for decks. Are you aware of any of those? Okay. So the coverage exemptions for decks, and these are decks that are pervious, so water can drip through. You're allowed up to a certain percentage of your high capability parcel area. So let's say you have a 10,000 square foot property, and high capability, like we said, you can do those land capability verifications or it's done through site assessments. Our land capabilities range from 1 through 7, and high capability is classed 4 through 7. So if you have high capability land as part of your property, then you are eligible for coverage exemptions. And with decks, for pervious decks, it's 5% of your high capability land. So if you have a 10,000 square foot lot, let's say it's all class 5, the math is easy. 5% is 500 square feet that you could use for a pervious deck. Now, in order to do this, you of course we have to know your land capability has to be verified. And we also, your BMPs need to be in place, so you're going to have to come in with a project, and we'll do your residential BMPs, and you'll get the deck exemption for coverage. The deck exemption, or the coverage exemptions also apply to sheds in certain extents, which I think Dave's going to go over in a little bit, and some pervious driveways. Yes, sir.
Do all of those draw from the same 5% pool, or do you get 5% for decks, 5% for sheds, etc.?
So it's a 10% maximum exemption on your property. And decks is 5%, and it works on a sliding scale. Depending on how big your deck is and how much high capability land is, and the 5%, it works on a sliding scale. So, but the total max between sheds, decks, and then there's also a pervious paver exemption, where if you have a driveway that's 100, let's say we have a 100 square foot driveway, and you use pervious pavers, you can use 25%. You get a 25% credit, basically, for using pervious pavers. So all of those cannot exceed 10% of the high capability land area.
Thank you.
All right.
So on the banking, does that apply to the standard property? So just bought a house, and there's a back porch that's got a roof over it, which I think was part of the original coverage. So if I take that roof off and there's a person that under it, can I get that coverage and then use it for something else within that parcel?
Well, as long as you do your BMPs, right, and we can, or you mitigate any excess coverage that's on the property, then you can work to bank coverage that you are removing. And essentially, if you wanted to use your deck exemptions towards an existing deck, and you have your BMPs and you've mitigated excess coverage, then I think you can work to bank that coverage. Does it sound right, Dave?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Folks, I know this is really, because I'm very excited myself. But
let us help you figure out that process so that you're not surprised when there's an extra step that you might not have been expecting because maybe you didn't realize you had to come to TRPA for a site assessment. So that's what we're here for, and we have a lot. We talk to a lot of homeowners. We're all happy to do that. So, and And then once you have an idea of what your map looks like for your process, then make sure you allot enough time to get everything done. We try to set reasonable timing expectations of how long the reviews take, let's say for a banking application. We try to set reasonable expectations for that. So just make sure that you're aware of things. Like if you're wanting to start a project May 1st and you haven't got a site assessment done and you need one done, then start thinking about getting that submitted as soon as possible, because while there's no snow on the ground right now, snow could come, and that affects our staff's timing on getting some of these applications done. Okay, so just, I think mapping out the process and timing are important tips for you as property owners. So we kind of touched on this, but common questions. I want to add a deck to my house. My house was built in 1964, and I don't know anything else. What do I need to do? So you need to check TRPA and the City of South Lake Tahoe for land capability and coverage info. Let's say you just bought your house, and you know it was built in 1964. Maybe somebody did a project recently, and that information is available somewhere. So you need to do some due diligence, and that information is available with us and at the city. So if no land capability or coverage info is available, then you need to submit a site assessment application to TRPA for an IPE score. And a reminder, IPE is your individual parcel evaluation system. That's your score. And that's going to give you an idea of how much of that parcel you can cover. Okay? And then put your name on the allocation list with the City of South Lake Tahoe. Judy talked about that. You may, if you're anticipating that you know you're going to want to build and you know you can build, you may want to do that sooner rather than later. We have some allocations available for different programs as well at TRPA. And then once you get those two, you can submit a new single-family dwelling act to City of South Lake Tahoe. And then if any transfers are needed, let's say you want to transfer into some additional coverage subject to the code requirements, then you can do this at the same time as you can submit the transfer application to us and submit the single-family dwelling application to the City of South Lake Tahoe, and we'll work in conjunction with them to make sure that that all ties together. And then the last thing I want to mention, TRPA and our MOU partners, we understand, a lot of us are property owners ourselves, we understand that it's a difficult and confusing and sometimes convoluted process to navigate, just trying to get a deck. So one of our staff priorities, prioritized by our board, is called the Welcome Map. And this is a great initiative that we have staff working on. And it's basically to address complicated and overlapping jurisdictional requirements, and to make the permitting process more navigable, more transparent, make more resources available at one spot, so making more of these applications available at the City of South Lake Tahoe, and just working to make things easier for you, to create more one-stop shopping, if you will. So that's why we have the welcome mat up there. So some of the things that we can move on, but this is a 5-year initiative, so we have 5 years to kind of implement the full scope of what we want to do. But most recently, historic determinations, we work with the city. They're doing historic determinations, and we're doing historic determinations as well at TRPA. If we can look at it over the counter and determine that there's probably no historic significance, then there's no fee, and you can move on from that step. We've improved our field technology recently, so inspectors have iPads that streamlines a lot of the field review. We're working to make our website more friendly, and Devin, who's sitting over there, is working heavily on that. More how-to videos. We're working on those, getting those up on YouTube. Things like, how do I get a tree removal permit? What are some of the other ones, Devin?
How to look up property information.
How to look up property information on the TRPA website. So we're working on doing that. And then jurisdictional staff cross-training, working a lot with our partners to make sure that they can answer questions on behalf of TRPA. There's our MOU training binder. To make sure that they can answer questions on behalf of us and that you're getting the right information consistently is really important. And then making more online applications and permits available to you guys so that you don't even have to leave your house. Hopefully you can just do more and more online. Yes?
Can you give an example or one or two of a historic determination? What is that?
Great question, because this is happening more and more in the city. And I think we're just about done with this slideshow. So if you are good, Tracy, I can take this question and then we can hand it over to Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what makes your property historic? Well, the baseline criteria, the kind of the screening criteria is that if your house is 50 years or older, then we have to look at it for historic value. And more properties in the city of South Lake Tahoe, I mean, my house was built in 1964, so if I ever do anything to my house, I have to get a historic determination. So what you need to do is bring photos of your property. You need to bring a chain of title, a history of ownership. Start with that and bring those into either TRPA or the city. And actually, Jennifer Self, she's sitting right over there. She's the TRPA's in-house historic expert. We can look at the pictures and all that information for you. And if it has no potential historic significance, then we can sign it off and you're good to go. If it does have potential historic significance, then it goes to the California State Historic Preservation Office, and they'll do a more formal review, and that does require a fee. In most cases, we can make the determination that it has no historic potential over the counter, and it's a done deal. So, but it is something that we have to comply with. 50 years or older, more and more of us are being wrapped in that bubble. So just be aware of that as you move forward. And I think that's pretty much, I mean, I could stay up here, but I'll let Dave talk about sheds and permitting in the city.
Well, just a quick addition. Does the condition of the property have something to do with that?
The condition of the property?
The building or whatever's there, not just a photo of it. Because that doesn't always tell anything.
Do you know the condition of the property? Sure. So I'm Jennifer Self. I'm an architecture historian. I'm also an associate planner at TRPA. So when we do a historic evaluation or determination, we do look at what is the character, the architecture of the building, what's the integrity, so that question of condition, what's the integrity of what's there. For the most part, these determinations are relatively easy on the part of TRPA and the city, where we can make that determination over the counter. As Tiffany said, a lot of our infrastructure, especially here in South Lake Tahoe, was constructed in the 50s and 60s, and it's getting to that age, and we can make a determination. The TRPA actually designated really important historic sites back in the 80s. That's the Thunderbird Lodge, the Camp Ridge, things like that. So we have those big important areas, and for the most part, we do have to take a look at a property that's over 50 years of age, but hopefully we can make a determination and you can continue with your project.
Well, what prompted my question is that there's a lot of construction here that wasn't built to any particular standard, because they didn't have any. So that's not necessarily give a historic determination for something that's probably not worth looking at.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Just because it's old does not mean it's historic. That's a very, very important point.
So thanks for the both of you for dealing with that. I don't want to take Mr. Walker's time, but I thought I'd clarify that.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Do you want a drum roll, Mr. Walker?
No. Good afternoon. My name is Jay Walker. I'm the building official for the city of South Lake. Could I ask how many design professionals TRPA consultants, architects we might have in this group. One is old. Really? Any attorneys? Yeah, you gotta be careful what I say. Okay, see where the crowd's at. So you want to improve your property, and in the basin we have a lot of rules. I've been in other jurisdictions. You think the building codes are bad. No offense against TRPA, no. But we have a lot of regulations, planning, TRPA, building. And I hope to encourage even the consultants out there to please ask the questions before you take that first step forward. Like the rumor, hey, I can build a shed, no permits required. True or false?
False.
No, it requires a lot of paperwork. You don't need a building permit if you keep it under 120 square feet, but it is still coverage. And yes, you can use the coverage exemption to, I hate to use the term free coverage, but there's a process. And part of my job is enforcement. And when we get a complaint, that neighbor, we have friendly neighbors, my neighbor's building a shed, and we show up, oh, it's under 120 square feet, no building permit. I'm sorry, TRPA permits required. Oh, and you didn't follow the planning rules for the setback. Now you built this nice $1,000 shed, it's going to have to be demoed, typically. So it's not pretty. That's just a shed. We won't talk about decks or additions, but there is a process, and you've heard some great basics from Tiffany here and Judy, but some of the projects are exempt from anything, planning or TRPA. Yeah, they're simple. Hey, change out your water heater. You don't need a planning or TRPA permit. If all the exempt activities, if you're demoing a little shed or something, grading less than 3 yards, landscaping, believe it or not. You think this is trivial, but on the books, they're exempt, and that goes a long way for anybody getting in trouble. I hate to be so pessimistic here. I just see all the grief out there for people not knowing the rules and coming in too late. Interior remodels, you don't have to include TRPA or planning on that. Yes, building is going to have an eye on you, but exempt from that process. Any maintenance and repair off the books. So you have a few exempt. And if you got questions on what, a phone call. You know, we answer the phone once a week, maybe. Say that. But let's say you want to do an addition. And of course, Tiffany covered, when you add coverage, it's a TRPA project. You can handle it all at the city, or you can go to TRPA, find out who's nicer, who does it quicker. Yeah. But yeah, site assessment. Do we know the costs? Anybody know the cost of building a house in the basin here? If you just wanted to build a crack-a-jack, maybe put some granite countertops. Man, I should ask Jason. But the cost of building here, just the building, it's pricey with our snow loads. Yeah, you're going to pay, you can find a contractor, a couple $100 a foot, if you're lucky. $250 is about the average. But let's say you got to get a site assessment. Does anybody know what that's going to cost you? You got to find out the coverage on your parcel. And you're a homeowner that's not going to do the site plan yourself. And you got to get this coverage figured out. 1,008? 1,080? 1,080. For a site assessment. That's the application for TRPA. You know what it costs to hire a surveyor to get all the information on that paper? Nobody here from Turner and Associates? No. That's another grant. unless you're skilled with a measuring tape, they do allow, TRPA does allow anybody to draw a site plan. You don't have to be a licensed surveyor, architect, designer. So if you know how to use a measuring tape and a transit, okay, I got a Jeffrey pine that's 24 inches in diameter, at 10 feet here, 10, the house is this big. If you can get all the information yourself, you save yourself $1,000. But if someone wants to build that deck or get that shed, they're going to have to get a site assessment to get that land verification done and the coverage verified. With that little piece of paper, I look at a little piece of paper that's going to cost you a couple grand, but it's going to have all the information on it. How much coverage you're allowed, how much has been verified, and the land capability. Now you can pursue those incentives like a deck, 5% of your parcel size. The shed, 2% or 120 square feet of your parcel size. You have a 5,000 square foot lot, which most of our city lots are. 2% of 5,000 is that 100?
100.
Thanks. So you can't build a 120 square foot shed without counting some coverage in. The deck, 250 square feet of free deck, that's a great incentive, I think. Yes, but now you got to put the BMPs. Have you considered the cost of putting those drip trenches in? You got to put a paved driveway in, a slotted drain, a dry well. I'm being pretty pessimistic here, but it's the rules. And did I forget dry well sediment trap? Yeah, sorry about that. But what are the costs of the BMPs, your site assessment? When you get all that done, great. You can add a nice deck on the back of your house with a little storage shed for your toys. And if you change your driveway to permeable pavers, that 25%, you've got a 400 square foot driveway, that 100 square feet now could be used for your little addition to make your family room big. So we've got a TRPA consultant. People that know the system know how to use it to use for your benefit and promote any business there. But TRPA, Tiffany here could quit TRPA, become a TRPA consultant, and she would advise you the same as she's doing at the counter now. So like she encouraged that welcome mat. You know, Judy here, she's retiring. Full stipends, Judy? But please ask those questions, and we hope that we can find not alternatives, but use all the rules to your advantage. If you don't ask, I just see grief. So I'm just here trying to encourage that you ask the questions and follow the procedures. So you got the additions, the coverage exemptions. We have what we call qualified exempt projects. This is where you don't need a site assessment because you're building over a driveway. Or you're going to take your whole roof off and add a second story. You have a deck that you're going to remove and put an extra room for that 26-year-old that came back and lived with you. But these qualified exempt projects, you're not increasing any coverage, so you're allowed to move on without the site assessment.
What do you mean covering the driveway? Because I heard a,
Well, let's say I have that driveway. Let's say they built the house at the back of the lot. You have this 50-foot driveway. That's 20 feet wide. Okay. You're out of the setback. You can cover that whole driveway with a new 2-story double-car garage, rec room, whatever. But you're going over existing coverage, so we can consider it a qualified exempt. There are some structural limitations, costs, but we're not going to go into complete details here of Huey, but if you just don't add any coverage, we can call it a qualified exempt. Just simplifies the project a little bit. You heard about the vacant parcels, how that is determined. That I-score in the city, if you have an I-score of 2, you can build on it. It's going to be a sensitive parcel. You can't apply any coverage exemptions, but you can always transfer. There's a table on how much coverage you can transfer in on a vacant parcel, depending on the size. Help me out. Under 10,000, I can go up to 1,800 square feet. If I'm 10,000 or more, you can transfer into 20% of the parcel size. So it might read you only get 3% coverage on your 10,000 square foot lot. Hope some math people out there. 3% of 10,000. Is that 300? You say, I can't build a house on 300 square feet. Well, you're allowed to transfer up to that 20%. So by knowing these rules, go to your architect just one time. They can you know how big a house you can build. So we have all these different classifications of projects. Obviously in this setting, we're not going to go through all the details. I know about building, permitting, what's allowed and what's not. But we do have experts that know all the fine details of the TRPA code here. We found out about historical. Yeah, that's huge. Did we know that there's some areas in town that even if you do have that little ranch, ugly little home, excuse me, but if it's located in Tahoe Meadows, it's historic. You know where Tahoe Meadows is? That whole area, Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, has been deemed historic. So any structure there, it gets, we kick it out. You can't make that determination, right, Judy?
That's correct.
Right.
And El Tahoe.
Yeah. El Tahoe, I call it Star Lake, Gold Tip, that area. Are you familiar with that little area? There's a little tip of El Tahoe that has been deemed historic. There's a couple streets with the trees in the middle. Some old homes there. But again, if you came in and wanted to do an addition in that area, you know, the red flags pop up. It has to get reviewed. You were asking what determines, and again, this stepping out. You know, if you get windows that have that single pane look, you know how they're all divided by that old style with shutters, maybe you got this, how do you call it? 6. What if they have 12 lights? But let's say you have a masonry fireplace that was done in a special way. Those are all little things that the pros are looking at to see if it crosses the line. No, you've had all your questions today.
Well, it wasn't really a question as much as a statement. What I was really thinking of, and this is probably for the architectural historian, but in the 40s they built houses with a garage in the back off an alleyway. But in the 50s they actually built the garage in the house, whereas later on they built the 2-story houses with the master bedroom above the garage. It's related to the driveway issue, and the architectural of each of those areas, Bijou, Alto, are all completely different from each other. In fact, they're sometimes mixed together. So that's going to cause some of that grief that you talked about unless they think about those.
There are so many special scenarios in our basin, especially the city. And yes, we have a very clear outline on how to enforce all the mandates in our basin. But as mentioned, there's a lot of special circumstances. I have a home that just came up today. The house up in front, the garage in the back of the property, and the garage door that's going out onto a vacant lot. This guy has to drive across someone else's property to get to his garage. What am I going to do with that? Tell him, don't drive on dirt on someone else's property? Yeah. Now that I know, I have to say, that's not allowed. What do I do with my garage? What are they going to tell him to do with his garage? It's a tough one, but we have all these special circumstances that we'll review and try to find an answer.
Shall we open it up into individual questions for the panel? You want to go first?
What's the question? How did he get the permit to build that garage that way anyway?
Back before 65,
Oh, okay.
back
For the standards, new standards.
we look at older homes, and yeah, I hate to say it. Yeah, back in the 60s, you know, this was just a summer place. It was mostly county. Yeah, we didn't get inspections. People didn't get permits. And now we have UCI.
Just a simple question. Is everything you're talking about basically applicable whether you're in the city limits or in the county? Because a big chunk of stuff like Tahoe is really county max.
Yeah, so we, TRPA has an MOU with the county that looks different from the MOU with the city. So there are some differences in what they can permit, the county can permit. For example, the county can do site assessments. So there are some differences. We're just focusing on the city today, but perhaps in the future we'll do one with El Dorado County, and you can always contact me particularly. I have some cards for El Dorado County.
And Dave and I work exclusively for the city of South Lake Tahoe. So we can't tell you anything.
So the permitting for county goes to Placerville or?
No, we have an office up here, and there's a satellite office up here for El Dorado County. It's next to the DMV.
They will send their plan check down to Placerville. And the gentleman that does the site assessments used to work up here, transfer to Placerville, but he comes up and does the site assessments.
I had a question about grandfather. Most jurisdictions I work in, if a project was legal at the time it was constructed, new regulations can't make it illegal. An example is driving across his neighbor's property. If that was done and it was legal at the time it was done, say you had an easement, is it now not legal? I mean, what is TRPA in the city's position on grandfather?
That's, you won't find that word in the Webster dictionary. I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand. No, it's a great thing. Grandfather, I'm sorry, I dislike that term, but you're right. There are properties out there that have built legal, non-conforming building. That's our technical term for it. It was built with permits or whatever before the city was a city, so it's allowed. But there's a lot of rules on it that, so let's say, okay, sorry, let me back up. You got a grandfather house that instead of the 5-foot setback, it's right on the property line. We're not going to bother you for anything on that. But let's say you take that roof off and want to go up a second floor. That second floor will have to observe the proper setback. So a little more engineering, you have to build 5 feet in. So you can't increase the nonconformity. Or you tear it down, we're not going to let you build it back in the setback. It's going to have to meet current standards. So grandfathering, if you don't touch it, we leave it alone also. But if you start to modify it, then there's a whole bunch of rules to kick in.
Another question. If you're looking in a neighborhood, I look at the property, I noticed a lot of the houses are very similar, except one, which was basically very similar, but looked like it had been extensively added on to. And it was for sale. I didn't buy it, but I looked at it. I'm guessing that there's a lot of additions on there. Knowing the coverage for those lots, it didn't seem to have the coverage for those additions. What happens if somebody buys a property like that and is non-conforming? What are the options of the buyer, the owner at that time? Is it demolition is the only option, or are there other options?
That's a common question. I'm going to do my best to answer it, given how I've experienced this. So, if you, as a new property owner, and you bought this property, and you want to either see if everything that has been done to it has been done legally, Or if you're exploring maybe doing a modification or an addition of your own, and you come in to the City of South Lake Tahoe and you're going to present to them a set of like as-built plans. And if they are out of conformance, then, I mean, there's a lot of different circumstances, like Dave says, every case is unique in some respect, but we're going to look to see where we can bring that into conformance, where it's possible for you to do the addition or the change that you're looking for.
I guess I'm more worried about chain of title. If you bought this property, found out it was non-conforming, and let's say the new owner had a survey done and found out that it was a non-conforming structure, that's what would be my concern. What happens in that case?
Like legally, like, are you liable for something?
Well,
or...
is it an impediment to title?
Is it an impediment to title, Dave?
No, it's not in the title. We get this a lot. You buy the house, you discover after the fact that, well, we've had a house that found out was built on someone else's property or across the property line. I'm not a lawyer, but now you're responsible, and you're responsible to fix that. Let's say you bought the property and the previous owner added on without any permits. You do a site assessment. I used to do site assessments for the county.
Your first one is carports. Are you allowed to just build a carport on the side of the house, just a lean-to roof with a couple of posts? What is the latest on that? I know with ADA or something a few years ago you changed the rules and allowed.
We'll have you arrested if you do that. No, if you do that lean-to, it increases coverage.
That's considered coverage lean-to?
Well, a roof over dirt would, yes. There's a reduction thing, but yeah, you build a lean-to, and that needs building permits and TRPA permits.
The second half of that question is, what if there is an existing carport? Can you convert it to a garage? Close it in and convert it to a garage?
Yeah, I got to be positive. Yeah, sure. Yes, that is quite doable. There are building code rules, but that can be done.
Okay, some of them already have like a concrete slab or already paved it, as a carport or paved under or something there, and so you can convert that into a garage then if you want.
Okay.
With permits.
What kind of smart crowd we got? How do you define a carport?
A roof,
in the building
post
code.
Side on it.
What's the difference between a carport and
sometimes they have two sides, a back and a side or something.
I know you guys want to know. A carport only has, well, it has two open sides. So imagine a carport's always connected to a house. Okay, you got three left. The wind, the snow's blowing in. I'm going to cover the back and the side and leave the front open. You have a garage now. If my guys come by and see that, there's a lot of safety issues, and yeah, that's a conversion already. But a carport's two open sides.
Let's go you, and then you.
Couple of questions. First, about setbacks. Is there a provision for things like bay windows protruding?
So no floor area out in that side setback. That's
right.
Not considered architecture.
Yeah, so no support posts, no nothing.
Well, not even a cantilever. Let's say you do a bay window,
right,
that you can walk into. No go.
Not in the side setbacks. It can be in the front or the rear.
Right.
But on the side setbacks, it can only be cornices, eaves, fireplaces, and architectural features.
Right. And then front and back setbacks, they can be walked into, but they can't have any external support.
I've seen engineers come up with 8-foot cantilevers in the front of the house, which is pretty substantial in our snow load and size.
So basically, no living space can encroach into the side setbacks. You can encroach into the front and rear by up to 50%. And there must be a clearance of 7.5 feet.
My question is about fences, and my understanding is you can modify or fix your fence if it's falling apart, if it's existing, where you don't need a permit. So my question is, I'm on a corner, I have a 100 by 50 lot, so the back of my property is next to a neighbor, so if I want to replace that 100-foot fence, do I need to notify the neighbor of that, or am I allowed to just replace existing fence with better fence?
You don't need to notify your neighbor. My recommendation is that you be a good neighbor and let your neighbor know what's going on.
The problem is they're never there, and it's always like the metal windows are always down, so they're rarely there.
And a lot of the fences in town are built by people on the weekends without a permit. So people don't always know that they need a permit for that fence. So it's a good idea that you check, before you spend the money to repair your fence, just check to make sure that it's a legal fence that you're repairing. And we do allow maintenance and repair, so replacing fence posts, fence boards, but if you tear down the whole section across the rear of your property and rebuild it, you should get a permit for that.
My question is going back to what the gentleman in the red had to say. Just so I make sure I have it right, he buys a home and it's got all these unpermitted additions and finds out after he buys it. What you're saying is it's now his responsibility to fix it, to make it right. So he probably is going to have to demo or do something. So he is now responsible for this, someone else's boo-boo or illegal maneuver.
Yes.
Okay.
And if he comes to us and say, hey, I discovered that I got a whole bedroom, bathroom that was added without permits, and there's no coverage issues, actually we'll try to be nice and call it destructive inspection. I'll rip off the sheetrock, I gotta see the wiring, the plumbing, open up the floor so I can see the floor joists. We won't go to that extent. We'll try to be as reasonable as we can. Hey, your lights work. You know, you haven't collapsed yet from snow loads. So we'll try to be as reasonable as we can to get them legalized.
Cool.
Can I say one more? Okay.
Yeah, I had to add this. I actually have a site assessment from 2005. Nothing has changed since then. Is it still valid? Yes? Okay.
Great questions.
Is there a time when it isn't valid? Does it
Yes.
expire? What's that time?
So,
July 1987.
right, 1987.
If you
Has to
got,
be 87 or newer?
thank you.
Okay, so 03 would still be valid until whatever.
Both you and then Devin.
Now, my question is about reducing impacts of existing development in sensitive lands. So, for example, is there any credit given or any incentive to change from impervious driveways to pervious pavers in the driveway?
You mean in...
If you're in sensitive lands, you have an existing impervious driveway. If you convert that to a pervious driveway, is there any credit for it?
No, not at this time.
So in sensitive lands, there's no incentive to reduce the impact.
Not in the instance that you're describing.
When would there be? What incentives are there to reduce the impact in development?
A lot of those incentives exist for development in sensitive lands for removing it entirely. And these instances might be for like larger, we call them legacy developments, especially here in South Lake Tahoe, stuff that's been there for a long time. There's incentives for removing that altogether and transferring it to like town centers. And so that's on a much larger scale than single family dwelling, private property owners like yourself.
May I add something? I would say, a small incentive
if you have a significant amount of coverage on sensitive land that you want to remove, if you do remove that, you can bank that, and that becomes a value or an asset for you. TRPA and local jurisdictions don't regulate the market value of that, but you potentially could have some value there that you could sell or transfer off of your property. So that's a small incentive. That's a
Could you just briefly touch on when or when not you need to get a permit for tree removal?
Sure. Tree removal, 14 inches diameter at breast height. So flat tape measures, go right up to the tree that you think you might want to remove, measure it. If it's less than 14 inches, you don't need a permit for tree removal. If it's more than 14 inches, then you need a permit. And you can do that online at trpa.org. And actually, can we pull up the very last slide of my presentation?
Sure. And do we call TRPA first, and then don't we also call the fire department for marking?
The fire department?
No, not anymore.
And this probably only applies to a very small handful of properties in the city, but if, let's say you are on Lighthouse Shores and you have a tree that's sitting between your house and the lake, even if it's smaller than 14 inches, then that is something that you can't just cut down because TRPA regulates scenic standards, and part of those scenic standards are trees that act as screening for man-made structures in the shore zone. So just an FYI.
Also dead trees.
I had a question and a couple of comments. One, you make it sound really horrible to do a site assessment in BMPs. I did them myself, and it took probably 4 weekends with my wife out measuring. We have about 4.5 feet of slope in our property, the line level marked off. We were able to mark each 1 foot drop. It was not that hard to do really at all. In the BMPs, I took the BMP class in college, and we had a problem with flooding underneath our house. I worked with the TRCD. They sent out a civil engineer. It was great. People piss and moan about their BMPs all the time. It was wonderful for me. We no longer have standing water in our house. All of our issues have been fixed with French drains and dry wells. It's really been quite remarkable. So it's not always a horrible thing. I'd say that it was really not that hard to do and quite beneficial to us as property owners. And we also were able to, we had historic coverage. Our house was built in '65. There was a patio added. Our carport was converted into a room, and then a garage was added. That's unfortunately, I have a sister that's a real estate agent, and I asked before we purchased the house, and I went to, I'm actually in the county. 3 sides of my property border city, which is, we're in this little anomaly in Sierra Tract, where I share a fence with a house that's in the city, but I'm in the county. It's kind of nuts. But my sister said, hey, you got to make sure that stuff's permitted before you buy it. The real estate agent, Larry Finkel, came unglued on me for checking on that. But it turns out the garage and the carport were actually permitted. But so I was able to bank all the coverage. I took out the cement patio that was all cracking and leaking into what we call the bonus room that had been a carport. So I have a bunch of coverage banked now that eventually I'll do something with. But my question is, I'm in the county right now, but I would like to be actually annexed into the city. I'm receiving city services. It's not like the city snowplow stops at my driveway. We wait for the county to come out. And I'd love to be able to vote in the city. So the annexation process is long and arduous, and I have 2 neighbors that have unpermitted stuff that they're trying to resolve before we can even start the annexation process. But I want to make some modifications to my house. At some point I will be in the city, hopefully. And so like my house was the soffit stuff, like underneath the roof line, it seems to have been put together with scrap wood. Like there's literally pieces and pieces that are like this big and this big, and like when we bought the house, the guy had caulked it and painted it all, and you couldn't really tell. 10 years later, now you can tell. I would like to remove that and put in like solid pieces of wood, maybe make it redwood, make it look nice or something like that. Do I need a permit for that?
Yes.
Yes.
The county will tell you no.
The county will tell me no?
No, you would not, and of course, I wouldn't ask for it either. To remove the soffit material and replace it with whatever. Just make sure the vents are adequately put in. And nice job on doing your BMPs and site drawings.
Yeah, it's a great plug for a lot of the resources that we have available online for homeowners to do this stuff themselves. Save you a lot of money.
I'd like to piggyback on what he said. Also, you are welcome at any time during business hours to come into the city offices and ask to see the property file for your address. We have those by address. There's no charge to look at them. And you can come in and see what building permits have been pulled for your property since the city incorporated in 1965, and you're welcome to do that.
And where is the city building located?
The city building is located at 1052 Tahoe Lane.
Next to the Kmart Garden Center?
Yes.
And do you have hours Monday through Friday?
We do. 8 to 4.
Okay.
8 to 4 Monday through Friday. We do not close for lunch, so you want to take a lunch break and hop over to see us, would welcome your visit.
And TRPA's hours are listed, and with that being said, I wanted to introduce Julie Reagan and let her say a word or two from TRPA.
Thank you. I won't take any more of your time. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming today. I'm Julie Reagan, Chief of External Affairs at TRPA, and thank the panel. I've been at the agency for more than 12 years and in the Tahoe Basin for more than 20 years, and I really feel like we're making really good positive changes. We're working together better. And one thing that we didn't have time to cover, because there's so many great questions that are real specific about the nuts and bolts, is why. Why do we have this process that we have in the first place? And it's really because what happens on the land affects the water. Where we build, how we build, what we do in the land side of the watershed rolls into the lake, and it's all about keeping the lake as beautiful as we can for future generations. And I've lived on the East Coast and been in very beautiful places that actually have as many or more complicated rules than Tahoe, but we do that for a good reason. And I just want to thank all of you for the hard work that you do. And I'm a homeowner, and it can be a head scratcher sometimes, but it's worth it in the end. And I just want to thank you for coming out today. I have to get to another meeting, but thank you. Appreciate it.
So with that, thank you everybody for attending, and I encourage you to call, visit, or contact either the TRPA or city offices.